In Neal Stephenson's book titled Snow Crash, published in 1992, the term metaverse was first coined. Stephenson imagined a world where people would enter the digital world using virtual reality, and inside, they were represented by digital avatars. His world was a centralized one. It was built by a company, and the company acted as a government inside the world. And you can imagine his world as a sort of black ball in the middle of space with a 100-meter wide road going across its full circumference. And his world included hacking, bribery, corruption, and it sort of created this dystopian setting for a science fiction book. Hi everyone, my name is Joshua Durga, and I'm an 11th grader. Today I'll be talking about a buzzword that has been popping up from the last couple months, and that is the metaverse. So I would like to start by comparing Stephenson's world, his prediction in the science fiction book, to reality today. So today, we have different companies creating different metaverses. For example, Facebook is creating Horizon Worlds, and Microsoft is developing Mesh. But there's a few things that Stephenson missed and actually successfully predicted. So the first one I want to talk about is transportation. Have you ever wondered why Stephenson's world included roads? Why would you need roads in the metaverse? Can't you just teleport anywhere? Well, in the book, Stephenson mentioned that the transportation in his world was limited to reality's standard of transportation. This means that you have to take buses, cars, trains to go where you would like to. And I think this is for the story, because a good guy being able to teleport into the bad guy's lair would be quite uninteresting, don't you think? But today's metaverse is all about efficiency and freedom. So teleportation would be a thing. You can think of it as a web browser. When you're working in a web browser or having entertainment in a web browser, you can switch tabs or windows by just a click. And we want to move this into the metaverse so people can be more productive and efficient. The second thing I would like to discuss is the topic of the government in Stephenson's metaverse. So we call this a centralized system where someone or something is controlling the metaverse. And today, we also have centralized metaverses. Facebook controls Horizon Worlds, Microsoft controls Mesh, and many others. But the type of metaverse we all want, and we are all working towards, is a decentralized metaverse, which means that there is no ruling power. And this is connecting to Web 3.0, which is another topic, but it's all based on decentralization. Now, comparing a science fiction book from the 1990s to reality today, I think is really awesome, and it shows how far technology has grown. And to show you the technology that has grown, I would like to introduce to you 5 different technologies that are on the forefront of the metaverse. And let's do this by remembering the 5 senses. So first, we have vision. Right now, we have VR and AR. Virtual reality, basically viewing everything that is virtual, and augmented reality, AR, which is adding virtual elements to the world you're viewing right now. And right now, we have VR and AR headsets, we have goggles, and we want even smaller. We have glasses, like the Google Glass, that is an AR glasses. But what's smaller than that? What's next? Well, the company Mojo Vision is actually developing something called the Mojo Lens. And these are basically VR and AR contact lenses. So you can see the picture behind me that this golfer is actually playing golf, but he can see his statistics in the game. And this is because of what he's wearing. He's wearing this. So this is AR contact lenses. And it works by having a tiny micro LED display that is put right in front of your pupil. And there it is. It's really, really small. And this packs a huge punch of 14,000 pixels per inch. Comparing that to a normal phone has about 300 to 400 pixels per inch. So the resolution is guaranteed. And not only can you see things while closing your eyes or laying down in bed, the green parts in the contact lens actually host sensors and monitors that can actually record your eye movement. And we can use this in the health sector because you can, by detecting someone's eye movements, you can actually predict diseases and sicknesses. But for the application in the metaverse, this would enable lots of people to enter the metaverse seamlessly. Next, we have audio. Believe it or not, this is a pair of invisible headphones. So you might wonder, why are you saying that's headphone? That looks like a normal speaker, right? Well, it's a bit different. So this speaker is equipped with 3D motion detectors that detect where your ears are while you're walking. So you can walk and it will detect where your ears are. And what it does is it sends ultrasonic waves from the speaker to where your ears are, and it creates a sound bubble like this. And this sound, only you can hear it. And you can walk while using this. And that's why we call it invisible headphones. This is an example of baggageless technology. You don't have to wear anything or put anything on to experience the same effects. Just like how we started with wired headphones, and then we moved on to Bluetooth headphones. Now, perhaps the future is invisible headphones. Third, we have touch. Now, this is Facebook's development haptic touch gloves. They're basically gloves embedded with pressure-inducing mechanisms and motors to allow you to feel things in the metaverse. And an example of using this would be picking up an apple and feeling its weight in the metaverse. Now, when I look at this picture, I'm sure a lot of you will agree, I just see this as something so bulky. Imagine having to wear this every morning before your virtual conference. So how do we get rid of this inefficiency? How do we make this thinner or even delete it entirely? Well, a company in LA called Emerge is actually working on solving this problem. Their theory works using sound. Now, if you're in a concert and the bass, the drums are loud, usually you can feel the vibrations throughout your body. Now, they use the same concept to use sound to create vibrations that you can touch. So this is their product, and they use a soundboard which uses sound above the human hearing range, and then they direct it to a single point, and at that point, you can feel stronger vibrations. And by combining a lot of these, they can mold items virtually in air. So you can touch and feel things in air. And again, this is baggageless technology because you don't have to wear or put anything on. Next, we have smell. This is Aaron Wisniewski. He's the CEO of the company OVR Technology, which stands for Olfactory Virtual Reality. Olfactory relates to the smell or the nose. And you can see the stereotypical VR headset that he's holding in his left hand. But did you notice the device under it? Now this is his product. He's developing a scent-producing device that uses a small array of smells to create thousands of scents. And you might think, what's so cool about this? Well, the cool thing and the interesting part of this is how you can connect this to what you do in the metaverse. So an experiment was done of picking a rose in the metaverse. So you pick up the rose in the metaverse and you smell the petals. You'll get the flowery, sweet scent you do when you smell a rose. But then you can actually turn the rose around and smell the other end of the stem. And you'll get an earthy, soul-y smell. And this shows how detailed we can connect real-life devices to the metaverse. Last but not least, we have taste. And you might think taste is one of the hardest because you have to have direct contact with your tongue. But a professor in Japan called Homei Miyashita from Meiji University is actually already making a prototype for tasting. The prototype on the left works like a mask with a straw that inserts tasting liquid into your mouth. And he developed that into a tasting TV on the right. And it's basically a TV with a plastic screen, and it sprays tasting liquid so you can lick the screen. Now we've covered all 5 senses. The metaverse is all about diving into a virtual world where you stimulate all the 5 senses. And now that we've covered it, what next? Well, going back to Neil Stephenson and his science fiction books that often predict things, he actually published another book, and this one's titled Interface. Now, can any one of you guess what this one predicts? Interface actually predicts the use of brain chips. And this is not too far from what we have today. Today, Elon Musk's company called Neuralink is actually developing brain chips to be implanted into humans. And right now, it's being tested on monkeys. So let me introduce you to Pager, P-A-G-E-R. Pager is a macaque monkey, and he has brain chips implanted into his skull. You might have seen the headline, "Monkey Plays Pong with Mind," in the news, and this is what they did. So right now, this picture, they're actually teaching Pager to play Pong. You see the joystick in his right hand. He's trying to move the ball around, and you can see he's actually sucking on a metal straw that gives him a reward of a fruit smoothie every time he gets the game correct. And while he's learning to play Pong, the group of scientists are actually tracking and recording his brain signals that he's using to move his hand. And what they did was they removed the joystick entirely, and Pager can play with his mind. So here, Pager is actually moving his hand along with the game, and that's for a simple reason. When he was training to play the game, the scientists used the brain signals to move his hand and attach that to movement in the game. So he has to move his hand to play the game, but he's doing this with his mind still. But when we apply this for humans, we can train the system to react to only thoughts. We can play Pong with our mind without moving a muscle. And imagine the implications of this. We might be able to type just by thinking, without using our hands. And this is really awesome and remarkable, because the implications of having brain chips that can instantly read our thoughts is really, really science fiction, don't you think? But you can really see why this is being tested on monkeys. Because with all these awesome but frightening technology, there also comes a load of ethical questions. One of the biggest questions in philosophy is, how do we know things? What if everything we're experiencing right now is actually being controlled by a supercomputer? How would we know to differentiate reality and the virtual world if one day the metaverse becomes as detailed and as precise as the real world? Yes, I know this is the plot of the movie The Matrix that just came out, but this is actually a real question. If the metaverse becomes as detailed as the real world, what if one day we have the brain chips in our head and we turn it off, but it's actually still on, and it makes us think we've turned it off? How will we differentiate the virtual artificial world with reality we are living today? And not only philosophical questions, there are also social and health problems that might arise from using the metaverse. What if people spend days in the metaverse? Like how we spend hours on our phones each day? What if the metaverse is the next thing we're on daily? And for health problems, what if people forget to eat or take care of their health, like going to the toilet, while they're constantly absorbed in the metaverse? I think this is the job of our generation for the next few decades to guide the technology in the right direction. And just like how the iPhone was only developed and introduced 15 years ago, most of us will probably likely experience the metaverse in our lifetimes. And perhaps the first new universe that humans will explore is not out in deep space, but right here at our doorsteps. Thank you.